Hey there, my Stampin' friends. Susan here with Pumpkin Hill Stampers. So I have a project that I kind of want to do for you. It's going to involve dies and watercoloring on our 100-pound fluid watercolor paper. This is actually going to be the thank you kit that I send out for all of my orders that I receive in the month of May. So the thank you kit's going to comprise of a card base, that's basic black, piece of watercolor paper, and then I'm going to die cut this large artistic die out of basic black for you. So you're going to get the frame and you're going to get the detailed die. Okay. Now, with those things in mind, I'm going to create a card. You can do what you want with them, but I'm going to create a card now and we'll see how it turns out. So I got up really early this morning and I just felt like watercoloring. So these dies were new and I thought I'm going to play with the dies and I want to watercolor. So I did a couple of things this morning. I'm going to do one for you too, but I'm just going to share what I did earlier. So I had this large piece of paper and I had my die and I thought, okay, so I had my die kind of next to me and I took my watercolor brush and I just picked up some ink off my block. Now I've got Berry Burst in this corner, I've got Parakeet Party for my green, and I picked up Crushed Curry for my yellow because I really wanted a nice bold yellow. And all I did was I kind of pre-wet my paper so that the ink would absorb easier, and then I just started dropping ink down, and then between colors I tried to let it dry as best I could. If you don't let it dry between colors and then they touch, they'll kind of bleed into each other a little bit, but that's okay. So I spent a while this morning playing in my stamp room and watercoloring and then letting it dry in between, and this is the first one I came out with. And you can kind of see with the green, I've got that base green underneath, which was kind of real muted. And then I went back in with a very dry tip brush and just kind of dotted some extra green in there so it looks kind of pixelated. I know there's actually a term for that, but that's what I'm going to call it today, pixelated. So, so there's that, and then the idea is that I'll take my die cut and I'm going to place it over the top of this. Right, I'll adhere it down and then I'll trim it down to go on top of a card. So that's one idea. Then I wanted to play a little bit more. So I've got this one, and you'll see that my black cardstock kind of bled through a little bit. I wasn't careful enough over there. And this one, I just put my die over the top, and with a almost dry brush, I just kind of painted between the die. So I kind of used my die as a stencil. Think about it like that. Right, you can see underneath, you can see where it was, right, and that's kind of fun. If I didn't have all those black lines in there, I would use it as, but since there are the black lines in there, I can again just adhere this down over the top if I want to, and use that as a focal point. So the card thank you kit is just going to be the basic black base piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to cut it 4 by 5 1/4, and then you can size it however you want. And then you'll get the dies. Okay, so I'm going to do some watercoloring right now on the video for you guys, and then as a thank you, you'll see it in your mailboxes from me. Alright, so first I want to show you how I did this one, because this one the brush is kind of dry. So I'm just going to flip it over to show. Okay, so I have that down. So my watercolor brush, I've got water in the barrel. My tip is still wet, so that's fine. Alright, so this one, because I'm using it more like a stencil, okay, I'm going to start with the yellow first. So I'm just going to come back in here, and this is, I mean, it's been sitting for a while. I'm just going to reactivate with my brush. I'm just going to squeeze a dot of water out, right, activate my colors a little bit. Let's put a little drop on each of those for a minute. And this is kind of a cool way to get your colors. Sometimes you can take your ink pads, squeeze them, open them up, and there'll be a little bit of ink on the cover. Or you can just put some re-inker on one of our acrylic blocks and then go from there. Alright, so I'm going to pick up the yellow. Now, the yellow is the one that I had too wet before. And see, I'm just going in and kind of painting it like, think of it like a stained glass window almost. Right? Going in and adding the color into the sections in between my flowers. And I'm not too worried about it being perfect, because it's a watercolor. Watercolors are wishy-washy, but I don't want it too far outside of my edges. Okay, and because I know that my black paper is going to bleed a little if I get it too wet, I want to be careful not to get it too wet in there. Okay, so I'm picking up more of the pigment ink from the original splotch, and then I've got kind of a diluted one out here on the edge that I'm coming on the outside of the flower. Isn't that fun? Okay, so I've got that. There's my yellow rose, right? And now this, I didn't get it too black, so you can kind of see all those pieces there. All right, and I can pick it up and put it back down. It's not, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I'm also going to do these kind of round circles here. So I'm going to go in and pick up that crushed curry ink. I'm going to go in these round circles. You could, of course, use a different color, right? Your color choices are up to you. You don't have to use mine. I just wanted green, yellow, and pink, so I picked these. But if you want to do them purples or blues or whatever, it's your card. You make your card the way you want to. Alright, so there's my yellow. Now, between colors, you want to clean off the brush a little bit. So you can either just brush it out on your scrap mat, or you can squeeze it off into a paper towel or a tissue, just get that ink off. Alright, let's do the green next. So I'm going to come in here and pick up the green on my tip. And these are really small, so, okay, be careful. But if you're not too wet, you can almost just use it like, you know, our markers. So just go in with the tip and just add the green in there. Now, you of course could adhere the dye down first if you wanted to. I'm not doing it just so I can see you what's happening, show you what's happening underneath. But if you want to adhere it down first and then just paint between the die cuts, you could do that. Okay, some more over here. So this is a very kind of controlled painting, right? It's very specific to where we're putting our ink color. If you don't have watercolors, or if you don't like the loosey-goosiness of watercolors, use your blends, right? We've got the fine tip point on our blends. Use your Stampin' Right markers if you want to. Use your watercolor pencils, right? All those things will let you get some pigment into these die cuts for your project. So just because I'm watercoloring doesn't mean you have to, okay? Alright, so I like that green. That parakeet party really makes it pop. Alright, clean off my green. I don't want to mix my colors. Alright, so now I'm going to flip this around just so you can see me working on the pink. Alright, so the pink, I'm going to pick up the dark pigment and I want that in the middle. So I'm just going to dot that into the middle because I want my dark pink right smack dab in the center. Now I'm going to dilute a little bit out here. And I'm just going to go in and kind of do one petal on each one while it's still kind of dark. Okay, some might be darker than other. It's okay. It's not a right or a wrong. However you want to do it. Okay, so now I'm going to start using the washed out watercolor pigment. And I hope my brush isn't getting too wet because I don't want black in here, but isn't that cool? Cool how the color kind of just goes in there. I need a little water in there. It's getting a little too dry. Just add a little water, bleed that out a little bit. And then just try not to get your cardstock, the black cardstock, too wet so that it doesn't start to disintegrate into your watercolor paper like it did on my first one. Okay, I think that one is probably good to go. Alright, so let me pick this up. Yay, no blackness. Alright, so that was kind of cool, right? You could do that. Like I said, you could use any of your coloring tools you wanted to. So I'm just going to set this aside for a minute and let that dry. So let me do kind of the other style. And now I thought of something after I did my first one. Right, this first one I did this morning very early. I think it was like 7 a.m. I woke up and I just needed to get up. This one, it was very loose watercoloring, just putting ink on the paper. But I thought when I cut this and I decided I'm going to send this outside piece with the die, it might help you kind of be able to judge where to put some color. So think of it like this. All right, here's my die, and I've kind of got a mask. Think of it as a mask, right? This is going in the middle, but I'm just going to put this over there just for a reminder. Now, this time I'm just going to go ahead and start with pink because it's in my brush already. And my brush is all wet, so actually, usually I have a second brush on the table, but I don't. I just want to kind of get my paper wet to start with. So I'm just going to go over here, just kind of get this section, right? And I can kind of go like this and say, okay, it goes up here. And goes over here, right? Kind of just like a pink poof. And I can paint that inside of that masked frame, kind of just in this area, right? Then if I come back in here, I just dot color in the middle. See how the water is kind of taking it out? It's kind of bleeding it out. You can also come in, right, and you can actually paint lines either from the bloom in or from the center out, whichever. And I'm not too worried about getting them exact, I'm just kind of adding extra pigment in there. Okay, so that's kind of do that piece right there. So that's good. Alright, so now I've got this bright pink. I really need to clean out my brush. So I've just got a tissue. Usually I have a paper towel, but I don't have any in here. So I'm just going to squeeze a little extra water down into that tip, kind of bleed it out. See how we're doing. Okay, pretty good. Alright, so there's my pink. So now I'm going to do some yellow. And yes, really, I should tell you, let it sit and dry. I'm not going to let it dry. I'm going to keep going. So now I come in with my yellow. Okay, and my yellow's going to be over here. I'm just kind of go in circles. Right, this one I'm just kind of doing a color block, more or less. Just kind of putting color where it needs to be in the general area. Get a little more going out this way. I'm going to try really hard not to touch those colors together. Kind of put this over the top. I need some more in here. I need some in there. I just kind of marked it, right, by going through the die like a stencil again, but not specifically. Okay, I got here and here. So I'm going to do 2 little round circles here. I'll do one over here. Okay, and I know there's another one over there. How's that so far? Okay, now everything else is pretty much green. Pretty much. So I'm just going to paint the yellow out and I'm going to pick up the green. Okay, and now I can just use it like a stencil again, kind of. Right, I'm putting that green down. Don't want to get too close to my other colors because they are wet and I don't want them to bleed together if I can help it. It's not a catastrophe if they bleed together, just I don't really want them to. Add some water to that. Let it drop. So what do you think, guys? Is this something you'll try on your own? pick out a die that you like. All right, make a die and keep the masking piece, which would normally maybe be scrap, and then just use it to help you add color to some watercolor paper. Kind of help you put it where it needs to go if you want to be more like targeted and specific with your ink. But look, if I pick that up and then I have this over the top, that's pretty cool. Now, you might decide you want more green kind of on the edges, right? But we could even do that after we adhere it down. And look, even though I've got some white in between those flowers, when I put the stencil over the top, it kind of hides it, right? Or masks it off, so it's not like it's a terrible thing. Not a terrible thing. Alright, so let's see. Let me just add a little more. You know what I'm going to do? I want to do the dots like I did on the other one. Just going to kind of dot around the edge. Because your die may not be specifically lined up with where you had it the first time. It might be off a little bit. So, you know, a little extra around the edges is fine. And the drier your brush is, the less that ink is gonna fan out on your paper. And if you let it dry and then come back in, you can always add more pigment watercolor to it later. Okay? Alright, so let's put them together. Alright, so I've got my card base. I need to fold it in half and crease it. Okay, then let's see, which one do I want to use? I could put that one on there, and this would go on top. I think I'm going to use the fine tip glue to adhere it. See, I kind of have to squish it around, figure out where that goes. Alright, fine tip glue, here we go. Normally I would tell you let all the layers dry because sometimes adhesive doesn't like to go onto wet paper. You could use your heat tool to help you. Wow, I think my fine tip glue glued itself to ghost. I cannot get the cap off this glue. Okay, well, maybe we're not going to use the fine tip glue. Ow. Wow. That's like really not coming off. Alright, so I'm just going to use it this way. Alright, so I'm just going to come in here with the needle point on the adhesive. Hopefully it's going to come out for me. Yeah, it's coming out for me. Alright, so I'm just going to get my adhesive on there. Now I kind of do need to get out on these petals. So this could take a little time, but you take your time, right? There's no rush when we're stamping. It's supposed to be relaxing, and even putting adhesive on the back of our dies can be mind-numbing, right? Sometimes we just need to have our minds calm down, so doing something like this is a good thing. Okay, I normally would probably maybe put more on there, but we're going to go with that for now. Alright, so kind of position this where I think I had it mostly. Press that down. Now, you could trim this down. You could make it smaller, have more of the black show behind. But this is kind of fun. And then, I'm not going to do it in the video, but you could add a stamped or an embossed sentiment, or you could put a tag on there. You could tie some ribbon in there. Whatever you wanted to do. So there would be one. And then here's the other one we did. Now this one, you could either just use it like that, which is kind of fun, or again, we can put this right back over the top the way we had it. So let's see. I get some adhesive on here. If I can get this one down. And then again, guys, you will receive this in the mail from me as a thank you for any orders in the month of May. So you can shop online, use my host code. You can contact me. I'll help you place an order if need be. Happy to do that. And if you have an order that's over $150, do not use my host code. That way you get the Stampin' Reward benefits all for yourself. But you will still receive a thank you kit from me in the mail. So, something fun and different that you can try. So I used to send hand stamp cards as my thank yous, but I thought, you know what, we're all buying stuff because we want to be creative. So if I can share something a little bit different with you, that's what I would do. So that's why I send kits. Okay, so I'm going to line this up, hopefully as best I can. Press that down. And then I have a focal point there. So there we go. Alright guys, so maybe leave me a comment, let me know which one you like better, the bigger panel, right, or the smaller panel. What's your fancy, whether you like the more washed out coloring or if you like the more specific in between the pieces of the die. And I'll stamp with you again real soon. Remember, you can follow the blog, you can subscribe to my email so you don't miss any of the projects I share. I share extra projects just on my blog and just in my email. And I'll soon be starting my DSP paper share projects as well. So we have lots of projects to share. So stay tuned, get subscribed to my various social media and you won't miss anything. Alright guys, have a great day, do some fun stamping, and I'll stamp again soon. Bye!